Welcome to Chapter 4, Part 2, Parameters. This is a pretty short video with a pretty difficult idea, so hang in there and we'll be able to talk about it in class. All right, this is one of my favorite examples, is a Beatle band. We're going to create an animation for this band as an advertisement for their next concert. Very exciting. So we've got George Beatle, Paul Beatle, Ringo Beatle, Lennon Beatle. Get it? Isn't that cute? All right, so the deal is that they are going to move up and down and they are going to each play a sound, and they're going to have a sound associated with them. So if this is the storyboard, I hope that you're thinking, oh, that must mean there's a method for each of these. And we could do that, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so there's a method written. It's just called George Solo, and it just has George Beatle going up and down and playing a sound. So here it is. It's kind of cute. Okay, and we could do that again and again for each of the Beatles, right? It wouldn't be that hard. The only challenge would be bringing in a different sound for each of them, but really just kind of tedious. If only there were a solution. Well, great news, there is. Okay, well, I was supposed to show you how to import a sound. I'll do that next example. But the important thing is that Alice is not a sound editor. You actually have to make the sound or get it from a file. Don't worry, I have a place for you to get lots of sounds, but you can also create your own. And as you saw, this code was only written for George Beatle, and 3 more methods would be needed. Or will they? So here's a better solution. As I said, 4 versions of very similar code is a bit boring. So what if we could do something to shortcut it, noting that the only thing that changed is going to be the Beatle and the music that plays? So we want something more flexible. Good news, Alice has the solution, and so does Java, and it's called parameters. And we started to talk about this a little bit in class. There are built-in parameters already, such as distance and direction, where you just have to dump the number in and it will move that direction, right? Move forward, blah, blah, blah meters, and you're all set. So here's the deal. Parameters allow you to pass in values, arguments. Remember what we talked about with arguments, what those were? So for example, like I just talked about, George Beatle moved up 5 meters. Here's your parameter here, and here's your parameter here. So these are the 2 numbers, in this case, that we sent in. And you can send in any kind of argument that you want. You can send in a string, you can send in a sound file, etc., etc. So the deal is that you want to be able to create your own parameters, and I'll show you what to click on. But you just have to call it something. You have to decide what you're sending in. So in this case, they're going to make the band member, which is going to be an object, because the answer, so to speak, is going to either be George Beatle, Ringo Beatle, John Beatle, etc. And so I'll show you how to do this. So what if we could just write one method, and we could use parameters to specify which band member is to be jumping up and down and which music should be played? What would that look like? Well, we would just call maybe the method solo, and we would list the parameters on top. And the deal is that band member move up and down, and here's the music that gets imported. So if you go back and look, compare this to the code for George Beatle. We didn't have this line right here, and this said George Beatle moved up and down and played music that was the music associated with George Beatle. So we're generalizing it, and we're going to send in the values for those generalized things. And here's the example right here. Okay, first let me show you how to import a sound file. You have to have that file created already, and like I said, I've actually stored some for you. If you go into the student drive, there's something called all class folders, I believe, and if you click on science and then programming, you'll see it. Let me show you how I would just do that part. So let's just make up a new method. Let's just call it testing, and I want to, let's say, bring in a guitar, and I want it to play a sound, and I want to import a sound file. And so I would go where it is, which is under class folders, under science, under programming, and here's a guitar solo. So you import it that way. It's that easy. So again, that has to be already created. You can create one using all sorts of different software, including Audacity, but that's the idea with that. Okay, that's not important. Let me show you what's up with this one, which is how to do the parameters. So check this out. If I do my first method, there is a method called solo that gets called 4 times. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, that's pretty exciting, right? And so if we look at solo, we're going to just edit the solo thing. All it did is it said, all right, I'm going to have this parameter for some band member, whoever that is, and for some music, whatever that is, I'm going to have the band member move up and down, and the world played that sound, just like we talked about. Okay, let's go back to solo, and sorry, I'm in solo. Let's go back to world my first method. Here's the deal. The method gets called, and the band member gets dragged in. So this is what this would look like. I would drag solo in, and for band member, you see how there's band member up top? It's giving me a whole choice of things, and Alice doesn't know to say, okay, restrict it to George or Lennon or Ringo or Paul, because it doesn't really know what a band member is. You have to know that. And then it says, okay, well, your next parameter you got to figure out is music, and it does give you a whole bunch of things. Plus, these are sounds that are part of Alice. So I kind of like Splash. Let's do that one. So watch what happens. I'm going to have Ringo jumping up and down twice. Okay, so that's how it is. Let me show you how to create a new parameter. You click on here, create a new parameter. You call it whatever you want. You figure out what it's going to be, and you hit OK. All right, now it shows up in this example in world my first method. So up here, do you see up here? This is where I would have to define it. And I said it was a number, so I'm defining it as the number 1. We're going to play with this. I know it's a hard idea, but we're going to play with this, so don't panic too much. But just realize that we're having a general thing that we can dump specific information into, and that's the idea behind a parameter. Okay, so the deal is we just watched another version, and we saw that you could enter a name and select the type of each parameter. And the band member was an object parameter because I was putting people into it, things into it, and music was a sound parameter. Another idea, and this is going to be something you have to puzzle over a little bit, a parameter acts as a placeholder in the instruction. So it was generally band member, and then when I needed to be specific, I could choose who I wanted it to be. And they're passed to the parameter, arguments are passed to the parameter in the call to the method. So when we called solo, that's when it asked for what do you want specifically to have happen. Okay, so start to think about that kind of thing. And we'll talk about this in class. All right, have a good night.